Thanks, Maninder. Thanks for having me here. Going back to my background, I have had my primary education from Arunachal Pradesh. Post that, I did my secondary education from UP, class 12 from Lamartine College. I did my BTech from Karnataka, Basaveshwar Engineering College, Bhagalpur, which was in electrical and electronics. Post that, I pursued a PGDIE course in NITI. After that, I got a summer internship at RPG Group. And then since then, I worked for 10 years at CEAT in supply chain. I was there in MD's office for 2.5 years. I worked on supply chain improvement, production planning, production scheduling, supply chain improvement projects, demand planning. These are the kind of things that I have done. Post that, I've also worked as planning head at Rebel Foods. Okay. So supply chain planning is something wherein I have spent a lot of time. Plus supply chain digitalization is something which is close to my heart because I've done a lot amount of digital projects through and through in my career. So that's the way it has been. MD's office I got a chance to work upon, which was a very, very good experience because then you get a very good view of the overall organization. How does it work? Where does supply chain come in there? Where do other functions come in there? So that's the kind of things that you look at. That has precisely been my journey.
Thanks, Kapil. Thanks for sharing your professional journey and your background. Today, we will be focusing more on the supply chain planning part. And I conducted one poll as well on LinkedIn, and most of the viewers and the colleagues said that they would like to have this topic covered. I know it's a very big topic. The gamut is very big. There are multiple sub functions in this area, which I will take your help to understand. But at the same point, I think the focus will be highly on understanding the basic role of this function, how it works, and how it plays a very critical role in overall organizational performance. So if we have to start, what basically this function is, what are the roles, and how this function as a whole and the sub-functions connect to the organization's overall KPI or overall target?
Manja, this is one of the toughest questions when any newcomer comes and usually asks about the planning function. Yes. So supply chain is about the chain which has several links of supplies, right? The first part of a planner is to understand all the links that are there in the supply chain. And once you understand that, then you can go around with the planning function. Now, different organizations do work with different kind of planning structure. Let me try to make you understand through a much more easier process, which people can look into. The supply chain, how will a supply chain start? A normal supply chain I'm talking about. Okay. It will start with a product. For that product, you'll need raw material. Raw material will need procurement function. Usually procurement functions are different. At some places, procurement functions are within supply chain. Okay, that's the number one part. So procurement is more about negotiation, but there also is a planning within procurement function wherein you tell supplier how much to dispatch within this week, how much to dispatch within next week, etc. So I'm trying to go into a very layman kind of a language which will make you understand much easier. Okay, that's the planning. Second is the logistics in procurement function. Again, the logistics in procurement function is more about whether the supplier is supplying you the material or you are taking material from the supplier. That is the kind of logistics that you will need to plan, depend on different kind of industries. So if you are taking the material from them, then the logistics is on you. And then you need to have logistics planners there, right? Apart from that, you'll also need to know that in some industries, you will have full truck loads or large amount of raw material. In some places, you will need to have part loads. So maybe that you talk to 3 suppliers at some place, get material loaded from 3 suppliers and then bring it in. That is a different kind of supply chain. These are the kind of supply chains that will exist in procurement. Now, let's say that material has come. So material will not usually come to the factory. From factory, what happens is factory does have a limited space. It will not have much more space. So there will be mother DCs or DCs where the product will go. Mostly in FMCG, FMCD kind of environment. Unless it is make to order like say G, etc. It will be a make to stock kind of an environment. Make to stock means you anticipate customers' demand and produce as per that. That's what make to stock is, and that's what we'll discuss mostly here, and that will cover most of the industry that is there in the market. Now, at the DC, you need to first understand how much to bring in, how much stock to bring in. Take any product, you need to tell the planners that this is the amount of stock or the finished goods that I need to bring in from factory to DC. To anticipate that, we need a person who can forecast demand. That is called as demand planner. in most of the industries, it will be a demand planning role whose task will be to anticipate what is the demand for the month. Now, it is done by various processes, and demand planning in itself is a very complex process. It can go through statistical models. It can go through experiences of people in sales who may say that I will sell this much, I will sell that much, etc. But that's the basic core of a demand planner. Now, demand planner has given a demand. Okay, in Guwahati, I want this much. In Kolkata, I want this much. In Bangalore, DC, I want this much, kind of a demand which they have given, depending on wherever your warehouses are. After the demand has come in, the supply will not usually come from one factory. If it is one factory, you don't need a supply panel. The supply may come from 3 factories, 4 factories, and usually there will be a constraint. Example, there is a manufacturing line which produces 3 products. All the 3 products, so if you want 3 products as 100, 100, 100 per month, so you can't produce 3 products at 3 per day. You will produce 1 product at 30, then you will take another product for 30 run, then you will take another product for 30 run, and that's how the scheduling will happen. That is called production scheduling. Okay, so I'll come to that. Second is the supply planning bit, wherein the supply planner usually comes in and he usually asks about, this is the total demand of India, which I have got from the demand planner, but which factory will produce how much, or which supplier will give how much, and how will the allocation be done? That's the kind of thing which is done by supply planning. In supply planning, some people do production planning also. Production planning is again the same thing which I told, which is about production scheduling, which are usually at the factories. And if there are less number of factories, then the supply planner himself or herself does those jobs. That is the kind of supply planning. The third piece which has usually come up in the industries right now, which is sometimes part of marketing team and sometimes parts of supply chain team, is the NPD planning part. So there is a new product development. Now, new product development has got many things to be done. You need to register the new product. You need to take the supplier. You need to check whether the product has run good in pilot lot. Then there'll be bulk manufacturing. Suddenly, you will not give the product to the customer and we will not experiment on the customer. You will have a limited lot that will be sent to the customer, closely observed. Every details of that product will be checked. And then you will produce the main mass manufacturing lot. So when you do that, there is a planner in place who will see that how many schedules are left in the factory, how much schedules are there where you can schedule these new products, how much to produce, when to dispatch, which location to dispatch, what is the status, what is tech team saying, what is QA team saying. Tech is technology team, QA is quality team. So tech and quality difference is pretty simple. Tech is more about telling you the recipe. What is the specification of the product? Tech team will tell, right? Tech or R&D, which is different in different organizations. QA will ensure that those specifications are met. That is the difference between QA and tech. So that's the part which NPD planning manager will do. So he will coordinate with all of this and ensure that all the NPDs or new product developments are released on time. That's the third kind of planning. So you have got supply planner, you have got demand planner, you have got NPD planner. Now, this primarily forms the planning part, which is more about primary planning. Primary planning is what we call as from factory to the DCs. Now from DC to your depots or customer, depending on whatever is the model. Sometime from DC you send it to depot, from depot you send it to dealers or distributors. Some people directly send it to customers, depending on whether you are an e-commerce, you are an FMCG model, etc. Now that part from DC to customers is called as secondary distribution planning, which is much more wider. So if you see the funnel, any company will usually have 10, 20, 25 DCs, not more than that. I'm saying at max, because most of the material will come. That will be so for example, I'll make a DC near Bangalore, or I'll make a DC near, say, Madhya Pradesh. Okay. Then all the nearby areas, I'll serve through that DC. There'll be a lot number of depots. So in a DC, the truckload which goes from factory to DC is much higher, much bigger, whereas from depot to DC to depot, there is smaller truckloads. Okay. And the frequency is much fast. Okay. So if you talk about nodes, I'll just tell you about ratio. It may be, say, 1:10 kind of a ratio. There are, say, 10 DCs, there will be 100 CFAs. And it might be much more also. I'm just giving an example, depending on the organization. It can be 1:30 also. Just giving an example. That's the kind of planning which you need to do. So many people do automate it. So automate is what? I'll just give you an example in supermarket level. In supermarket, what you do, you just fix it, right? Just fix that you will have, say, 10 bottles of parachute. I'm just taking an example here. And if 5 bottles are sold out, you again replenish 5 bottles. That's how you do it.
Okay.
That kind of bottle planning, how much should I keep at the supermarket? How much should I keep at the CFA? How much should I keep at the depot? How much should I keep for the customer at the last leg is the distribution planning part, which is more of a daily planning part. Daily planning is because you never know, the customer sale is on daily basis. So if sometimes sale becomes higher, you need to send higher truckloads. If you sale becomes lower, you need to send lower material.
Okay.
So it is usually not uniform. The variability is much higher as the number of nodes increase in the system. The number of distribution planners are usually high. So for a zone, for a DC, etc., there'll be more number of distribution planners who will do. So this encompasses the entire planning department. There are some places which also have supply chain improvement projects, which look at all the kind of improvements that take place. So if I again tell you in brief, there will be a demand planner, there will be a supply planner. It may not be a right thing. There may be more number of people depending on the organization. So some organizations may have different demand planners for different product groups, more number of supply planners. Some may have only one demand planner, only one supply planner. That's the primary role of a supply planner, demand planner, and NPD planner, distribution planner. That's the kind of role in planning and encompasses. We also have SNOP function, which you would have heard a lot.
Yes.
Sales and operation. Sales and operation function is a very interesting way to take inputs of all the functions. If I say it in a very brief way, inputs of all the function and then take decision. That's all. Let's take you to the SNOP, which is the very important function in supply chain. SNOP consists of all these planners, which is sales and operations planning. There is a SNOP meeting that happens, which in short, if I tell, it is more about taking inputs from everyone and taking decisions. So now let me give you a hypothetical example to explain this, and then you'll understand everything. I have a product which factory can only produce 100 in a month. So the factory head or factory planner or supply planner will come and say, I can only give 100. Demand planner says, my demand is 120. But he says, I can only send 100. Supply planner comes and says, I have checked that last month you had sold less. So you already have 70 in hand.
Okay.
I think in hand means there will be some stock left in DC, some stock left in all the locations. So I have already 70 in hand. I can manage with 100.
Okay.
Because the inventory will come down from 70 to 50. Okay. That's the way it will be. Okay. But the distribution planner will come and say in the same meeting, you can do that, but 70 which is there might have gone to some other locations. I need to redistribute that. Okay. Then only it will come up. And then sales will say, okay, I feel this location will sell less, this location will sell more. I can manage with 110. I will give you a revised demand of 110. So let's do that way. It may be other way around also. Wherein demand has come down to 60, factory says I can make 100, but in that meeting it will be decided that you make only 60 because inventory is going higher. I have a limited capacity to keep in the warehouses. So you stop the factory. There will be fight in the SNOP meeting because if factory this stop, conversion cost will go high. Okay. But if conversion costs go high, conversion cost or manufacturing cost will go high. But then the sales team will come and say, I will not be able to sell more than this. And then the top leaders in the organization take some decisions. They will push sales people to sell a bit more. They will push manufacturing people to produce less, but at more efficient way. Can they shut down the factory for some days so that at least the fuel, etc. is saved? At least they don't use fixed costs, etc. can be received. These are the reduced. These are the kind of decisions that are taken. This is what is SNOP meeting. And for that, there is a data based on which all the decisions are taken. That data need to be updated by demand planner by interacting with all the people. How much will you sell? Are you sure you will sell this? Last 3 months says this. Last year says this. Budget says this. These are the data points that he will not need to plot. So when I said 100, it's not that easy that it is 100. Not only demand planner who will go and say that it is 100, let's close the matter. No. Demand planner will say, sales will say, I will sell 120. But demand planner will say, your trend does not show that you will sell 120. I think you will sell 100. They'll say, no, 110 is for sure. That's the kind of thing which are there. And it is there in the sheet, which is populated so that the decisions are taken. So what is the past 3 months production? What is the inventory? What is the sales, etc. are the kind of numbers that are there. So this is what SNOP function is all about. And this is what planning is all about. So planning is more to anticipate what is going to happen. anticipate very well of what is going to happen, and your ability to anticipate decides how good planner you are. It's not only about anticipation, but also about plan B, plan C that you have. So you must have plan B, plan C, plan D in case. Suppose if the factory is not able to produce, a breakdown happens, what will you do? What is your plan B? Suppose if sales is not happening, what is your plan B? These are the kind of plan Bs in which planners are usually working throughout the month.
Okay.
So that's the kind of things that happen. I think I've taken a long time to create a structure in your mind. And now I think going Q&A mode wherein we can discuss all that.
No, I'm connecting the dots and I'm already jotting down few queries just to make it more easy to understand for everyone. Before I will deep dive into this part, which you have explained very well. So there are 2-3 areas which I just wanted to understand from you. One is network design and optimization, and then materials requirement planning, like MRP, which we usually call in the factories and in any organization under this function.
See, network design is a very complex part. Network design is more about mapping your entire network, wherein the product is produced from the raw material manufacturer till it goes to the customer, and finding out the most optimal network. Now, if you are going on a constant kind of a network, which is that you create a network design and then you follow it for next 1 year and then you reevaluate after 1 year, which most of organizations do. It's once in a year or once in 3 years kind of a work, wherein nothing, you just map out all the things, then you say, what is the maximum lead time? Can we reduce the lead time? Can we reduce the number of nodes? Everything has a cost or has an impact. So if you reduce the number of PCs, the service levels will go down. Okay, there are two basic things that will happen. More number of nodes you have, better the service level.
Yes.
But more the inventory, because forecast error will be high. Lesser the number of nodes, you will need to have very good reliability of supply, because chances of stockouts are very high. If some disruption happens, you have less number of nodes, but inventory will be low. So there is an optimum decision that you need to take. There are some softwares which are doing it on daily basis, daily routing, etc. Okay, you can do that through softwares. But as far as I've seen, most of the industries, at least they've tried it in last mile about routing, etc. Otherwise, these are once fixed, and then people follow it for 1, 2, 3 years, and then they see that what is happening after 1 year, and then they re-change the design. So which may be as simple as you came to know that the sales is increasing too much in this area. So maybe I need to create one more node there, or sales in this area has increased. I can merge 2 DCs and make 1 DC kind of a thing. So there are many decisions which are taken, but this is not a regular decision. But as you told, it is pretty simple as map the entire piece on a page with an Excel sheet of lead time, inventory, and there's a trade-off between lead time and inventory. Do that trade-off and close the things.
Okay.
Okay, that's the way it is about network design. Okay. Second question you asked was about
material requirement planning.
The material requirement planning is pretty easy. Once the forecasting is done, then we just break the bill of materials, which is what is the requirement of each SKU, each FG. Each finished good products will need some raw material. They will multiply. Some people do multiply in Excel sheets, some do it in SAP, some do it in other software. They will know what is the material required to produce this much goods, and that will be uploaded and sent to the procurement team to buy. A smart demand planner will use his or her brains to put their own inputs in that. That's how it happens. Smart means some people do know the fact, it's not that automated sometimes. So they do know the fact that usually disruption comes in this area. So in the demand, I'll increase this much. Usually variance is high in this, or there are more QA issues in this. So the rejections are going on high, which may come down after 1 month. They will add rejection also and add in that. That's the kind of a thing that they will do. In material requirement planning, usually month plans are sent. Some people are intelligent enough to send week plans also.
Okay.
So for procurement, it is buying for the month. Week plan means if there's a small SKU, I don't want to produce 10 per day. I will produce all the 300 in 1 week. Okay. Then that material requirement planning can go that this SKU I need within 1 week. I don't want to take it for 1 month.
Okay.
That's the kind of.
Okay. So now I think we have majority of the. In fact, I think there might be some differences with the certain sectors, but like we are well covered with the different parts of supply chain planning. And somewhere I know that we have to connect the dots and to make it easier to understand for the viewers. So in one go, can you help us understand that if I have to say that how many types of roles are there within supply chain planning for any professionals to consider or take? What are the primary roles if you have to just summarize it as per the details you shared?
So as per me, the roles will be, first is the demand planner, of course.
Yes.
The second role will be supply planner. Some people call it inventory planner also, which is nothing but a supply planning role, which is about this much amount of inventory is needed at this level. Third is factory production scheduling, production planning kind of a role, which is at the factory. Then we have distribution planning role, which is about secondary distribution, which I've told you. These are primarily the kind of planning roles that we have. We also do have roles like regional logistics manager, which is sometimes called as field logistics manager. But those are not primarily planning roles. At some places, it is a part of distribution planning role, I would say. Again, core roles are these only. And each of the roles would be connected to these roles only somehow.
Okay.
If you go in e-commerce, there might be one more role, which is too varied, which is more about last mile dispatches.
Okay.
Which is also into planning. So last mile dispatches, for example, in Amazon, Flipkart, etc., there will be planning for last mile dispatches and route planning, etc. So that would be the new part which would be coming, say, in e-commerce, etc. Otherwise, these are primarily the role. Again, you can again take that under the umbrella of distribution planning. So to know at a larger view, these are the primary roles that we have.
So apart from these, there will be one SNOP role, which you explained. And would network design and optimization would be a separate role, and or it will also come under one of these roles?
It's a good question here, but usually we don't have a SNOP. You don't need a SNOP is a function. Function means SNOP is a meeting, I would say. Or the function consists of all the planners. Now, it would be different in different organizations. If your demand planner is too busy, you might have a person as manager SNOP to manage all this. In some organizations, demand planner will only be told to do SNOP instead of having a separate SNOP planner. So a network design, for example, manager improvement projects would do the network design, or the distribution planning head may be also doing a network design. You might not need a separate person. So depending on the resource crunch that you have, or depending on the tasks that you have on hand, these are the different things that are being done by different people. But there is no fixed thing that SNOP you need to have a separate SNOP manager. No. Network design, you need to have a separate network design manager. No, that's not the way it works. So it will be done by any of those verticals.
Okay, so that depends on the scale or the industry. There might be certain special requirements and they might have to do create some rules. So I think in terms of understanding and connecting the dots, you have explained it in a very basic and simple manner. And I have not worked in planning part as such, but I can say that I'm able to understand the connections between different departments or these different sub-functions of supply chain planning and how they are able to deliver and what are the basic KPIs I think they might, which we will be covering in upcoming questions as well. But I think when you were explaining all these roles and all these sub verticals or sub functions, I can understand that technology might be playing a very critical role in this planning function because the team members might be dealing with lots of data. They have to do lots of anticipation, like what you said. They have to work on forecast and then try to understand the historical data as well, and then accordingly plan everything and then inform the other stakeholders in the planning function that how they have to drive their planning part in their respective area so that we come out with a specific number of or specific result which will further help us to penetrate or make our distribution better at the end of the day so that our customers have our products on time wherever they want and our reach is better. So from technology point of view, what do you think, like what tools this supply chain planning function uses to drive different sub functions like forecasting, demand planning, or production planning, or the other roles which you mentioned? What kind of tools are available in the industry, and what is the role they play in making sure that the output is as per the expectations?
In supply chain planning, there are countless number of tools that are available.
Okay.
For different network. I'll just give you an example. As I told, and I'll go in the similar chronology so that you don't have an issue. For demand planning, there are various tools available. Now the tools are available which can give you a statistical forecast. Then there is something called as bottom-up forecast, because just imagine if bottom-up forecast means all the sales zones or all the sales areas check the statistical forecast, give their input, in my area this is going to happen, that is going to happen, and then give that input. Now imagine 40-45 people giving you input, sending you 45 mails, and then demand planner just collating those 45 mails, etc. And then some mistake happens in the demand plan and everything goes for a toss. So there are bottom-up forecast-based tools available, wherein all the people have their login. They go into their login, they check up the forecast. If it is between plus minus something level of changes which they can do, they will do those changes, they will update it, they will send you. So that is the kind of automation. Now, the next level of automation which is also coming is you don't even need to forecast. Okay. I know the data so well, and I know the demand sensing metrics that are there, that I can imagine the next move that is going to happen or next change that is going to happen. You just follow the forecast. You don't need to do bottom-up forecast. So there are different kind of tools available at different kind of levels. Now coming down to supply planning, distribution planning, see, the point is that Excel has a limit of number of rows, and you can't do everything on Excel. Okay. So more the number of SKUs, more the number of nodes, the logic has to be built in through various tools by these planners into the system. They have to go and question the logic, and whatever the output system throws, they should be able to understand. That is the basic role of the planner in an industry wherein the tools have been set up, and do slightest of the changes in those logics while understanding what is the kind of impact that this will do to all the locations. Just to give you a very simple example, suppose in a factory there were 150 pieces of some SKU which was available, and market demand was 80. And some intelligent person went and told ki, I will create a logic that whatever is in the factory, that will be sent out. So whatever of the demand plan of 80 was generated, that would be increased to 150. And then suddenly the transport planner comes running and says, my truck size is this much only, and you have given me a plan which is more higher than the truck size. So which SKUs do I send? Which SKUs do I not send? I don't know. So you created a logic without understanding the constraints which are there on the other side. I'm trying to make it very basic so that any person can understand. These are the kind of small constraints which come up till very big constraint. So you understand the system and then create a logic in the tools. Now in the tools, there are forecast planning tools, there are distribution planning tools, there are primary distribution planning tools in place. There is a whole integration piece from end to end, wherein you can automate everything from raw material planning till the last mile distribution, which can be worked on supermarket level. You can also create a tool which says that you have to keep this much amount of stock. If something gets sold, automatically next plan will be created in the system, something like Kanban. And again, that PO will also be created in the system. You just have to dispatch it. Then you manage by exceptions. That suppose the truck has not come or some issue has happened, then you manage that by exception in the system. There are many tools which give you end-to-end solution, which is that all the things are available in the system. Now I can tell you 1-2 more tools in which I came to know about transport management system, or that are done before. So in transport management system, you'll also come to know that how much can you load in that truck? How many SKUs can be loaded? How much can be loaded? You give the indenting will go to the transporter, that this much truck will be needed in this much area, this much can be loaded, this much is basis the load demand of the truck, etc. So that is also there. There is warehouse management system in place, wherein you understand that there is a constraint in the warehouse. In this much pallet, this much can be kept, etc. And nowadays, the kind of technology which is coming in supply chain is huge. I just gone to one of the forums and I came to know that some people are trying to use drone for inventory reconciliation, which was quite an exciting phenomena. So just came to know that you need to have physical verification to understand that much stock is available, something is not lost, or there is no mistake, etc. Right? So they are planning that by drone, it will go see the RFID tags or whatever tags they create in the night when the DC is closed. In the morning, you will have physical reconciliation trading instead of putting the labor, stopping the inventory reconciliation for a day, etc. So these are the kind of tools and technologies that are coming in. So digitalization, yes, it is happening. Can you categorize? Is very difficult. can, in simple, it is anything and everything that you have in mind can be automated. And there are tools available in the market.
Okay.
I can bet you on that. And if they are not available, you can connect with the partners who will create those tools. Okay. There is no tool which is not available. It's more about the time which is needed to create, the time which is needed to configure, and the cost of that tool and the payback, which you have to decide. There is nothing which cannot be automated or is not automated.
Okay. But in industry like ERP systems, so SAP is very common across various industries. Are there any sub tools available in SAP which planners use for any of the tasks, or there are any other tools which companies are integrating with their own ERP systems, SAP or something else, so that they can make these tasks simple and more reliable and consistent?
See, for me, I would not say SAP as a planning tool.
Okay.
SAP is ERP, and it has got great muscle power, great the level at which SAP has reached, others are far behind. So I would say SAP is more about financial reconciliation and the correct amount of stock, correct processes being followed. Okay. In simple, if I want to explain SAP to anyone, the whole business process is mapped in SAP for any kind of industry. So whatever you follow in physical, that is mapped in SAP. So you can trace back any SKU, any transaction in SAP. That's what SAP is for. It's not for planning. We try to create codes. We try to use developers to create some options in SAP. That's not for planning. SAP does provide some solutions like IBP, APO, which have got engines for planning. Core SAP is not for planning, is what I understand. SAP has got those tools which are there for planning, like IBP, APO, many other tools. Okay. They have for warehouse management also, they have tools. Okay. Now for that, there are several other computers also in the market. We have Blue Yonder available in the market. We have Kinaxis available in the market. We have O9 available in the market. Okay. All these do this kind of planning. Usually you will find that all these also interact with SAP. Okay. Data is there with SAP. They take this data and then work on this data to create supply chain planning solutions. Okay. So what is usually done, or why these planning solutions many times fail in the industries, I'll tell you why is because supply chain is, again, as I told initially, is link of supplies. One link not mapped properly would lead to failure of entire supply chain. So if you are able to map very well all the processes, all the pros, cons, all the issues, all the impact that one event will create over another in the system, then systems have got the capability to do several number of iterations and give you the best possible results. But system will only give you the result basis the conditions you put in. If you don't put in truck size, system will not take that. For example, we had done one implementation wherein we had not thought about that there will be constraint on number of SKUs to be loaded in a truck. System gave that plan, and finally people told, no, we cannot load more than 10 SKUs. Then we have to pay labor much more. We don't have that kind of capability. System has given us 25 SKUs. Now we didn't have that much time. So we had to again go back into the manual mode and create another plan saying, okay, 25 SKUs cannot go, 10 SKUs can go, which SKUs to send, which SKUs not to send. So the more you know about your system, you know about your each leg, you know about all the details, you can map that in the tools. So I would not say it is more about tool. Some people may not agree with me, but for me, it is not more about tool. It's more about knowing your system in and out, and the person who can map it in and out on an Excel or on a flow chart with each impact, then it can be automated through any kind of a tool.
From what you are explaining, I can understand, apart from the way it works, is that even with having tools, even if we are able to work with the legacy systems, somewhere market knowledge, intuition, your experience do play a very critical role to make these tools, these automations work better than what they are supposed to do. So like, it's not always a digital solution, it's always a input-led digital solution, if I have to say. There is a experience, there is a intuition, and your smartness coming into picture at the back end and helping these tools to work better for you. This is what I have understood. Just correct me if I'm wrong, if I'm not understanding it.
You are spot on, actually. So I usually give an analogy for this, which is that Boeing has given you the aircraft, okay, which can fly in autopilot, but you still need a pilot. for the kind of things that may happen. So while designing a supply chain solution, you should be very clear that what is autopilot going to do and what is manual person going to do.
Okay.
And you must have those options in place. You should not leave an option ki matlab, if you create a flight in a way that you cannot override automation, then and if something happens, what will you do then, right? So you always need to have those options available, and you will always need to have a pilot on board. The
Okay.
flight will become more and more automated going over time, but you need to have pilot on board, and it's not that pilot are not working. They'll have different kind of challenges which they will solve for. That's the way you work upon, right?
Yes.
That's the way you work upon. So while designing the solutions, you never know what happens. No? Tomorrow, I'm just giving you an example. The system cannot know that in Haryana there is a violence that has happened, due to which Haryana DC may not serve, and you need to manually plan from other DC, right?
Correct.
So they're the kind of things that will keep on happening in a diverse place like India, and you'll need to create solutions for that. So that is what planning will need to do. So you need to know exactly. There will be two ways. One will be automated, which will say ki, "Okay, everything is gone. Now I need to come on totally manual mode." There are some people who would have created intuition-based system there also. Some people who will use their experience to create, okay, what happens if this doesn't work? What happens if this doesn't work? And they will create those manual modes also while automating the system. So that when these kind of situations occur, they know what to do. So with lesser efforts, they can execute those kind of exceptions. Correct. And I'll tell you very simply, the people who work, they do know that you can manage at most 7 to 8 exceptions in a day. The combinations which you have worked in procurement. Example, you are having, say, 100,000 material, 1,000 SKUs, 10 combination, 10,000. So there are 10,000 ways of disruptions that can happen, right? So let machine handle 9,992 disruptions. 8 you have to handle. Yes. That's the way it works.
Correct. You have already covered some of the challenges and how it works in different parts of the supply chain, considering the outer challenges and the internal challenges. As a supply chain professional, like you have been working in this field from more than a decade now, if someone who is new to the industry, who is still studying or maybe planning to get into this industry, or people who have just joined this industry like 1, 2, 3 years, very new to the industry, still learning, according to your own journey, which are the key skills which have helped you a lot in delivering your assignments as per the requirement, or you overachieved in some parts of it, and which are the skills you were not aware and you faced some failures and then you realized, okay, these are the skills which are also required, and if it's better if we work on those skills from the day one to make sure that we become good supply chain planners as a whole, which can help students and new managers in this field to understand where they have to work more if they are not working in that area.
Thanks for this question. Yeah. If I gather my thoughts, I would say the first thing is to be inquisitive.
Okay.
There is less amount of inquisitiveness, or it is coming down day on day. This is what I can understand. So they need to understand why has this happened, why has that happened. And the level of perseverance needs to be very, very high there in supply chain. Why I said these two words, I'll tell you. First thing is that every supply chain will be different because the processes will be different. And there'll be some places where all the processes will be mapped. There'll be some places where all the processes will not be mapped. Okay. So you need to ask people why this has happened, why this has happened, why this has happened, why this thing will happen, and need to understand till the detail of that. The better you understand, the better planning you will. Why I said perseverance, everyone is not free to just tell you as soon as you ask. So I have had 1 or 2 guys who I was very surprised with, but did a great job. Yeah. They finally sat on the truck and went with the driver to understand what is happening, why it is taking. So example, it's very easy. I'll give a very simple example, and very less people will do nowadays, which is key. Everyone will say, why this lead time is 3 days? From past three dispatches, the lead time is 3 days, and suddenly why it is 5 days? Like they found a route in which the lead time was very, very high, and they went along with the driver and they understood the kind of concerns they have. And you don't need to do every time, but once they went, they understood the real cause that is happening. And then the picture was so clear in their mind that they knew all the kind of alternatives that can happen. Number 2, every problem has a solution. So to every no, there is that you have heard, there is a conditional yes setting somewhere. I have it very strongly. You can say ki lead time is 5 days. I have only 4 days of stock remaining. Okay, so stock out is bound to happen. No, there will be some option available somewhere. Just keep on asking people. Be humble, keep on asking people, talk to people. There will be some option available. Some stock sitting somewhere needing some recipe change. Tech can help you, QA can help you, R&D can help you. They can change SOP for some time in a very controlled manner. Sales can help you, saying I can push this order for some time, etc. Don't be limited to your Excel sheets. Talk to people.
Okay.
Supply chain is very big. To know that knowledge, it does take time. So you talk to people, know the process, and you will know many hacks after some time for each kind of problem. And all the people who have worked in supply chain would be knowing their own hacks that they can work around. You would be knowing your own hacks in procurement that you can work around, right? Some places, the things always get solved by talking. You'll talk to experienced people, they will know 5 hacks. Hacks means nothing by breaking the rules, but they will know that this is the process that you can follow. This is another alternative that is available. So the problem or the point in supply chain is there are 1,000 problems and there are 1 lakh solutions. Nobody has time to explore all those. And experience does count. So be inquisitive, have perseverance, just keep on hitting, requesting. There have been times where people did not have time, but when I went 3 times, 4 times when I was in my internship days or starting days, then they were like this guy is really working hard. I need to give time. Yes. And they gave time and they explained so many things. So their experience counts. Okay, that's the second thing I would say in supply chain planning. The third thing is you have to be good at Excel. I'm pretty surprised when I see some of the people not having tried Excel much before coming into planning. You can't do planning without Excel. And I'm saying it upfront. You have to be good at Excel. Excel doesn't mean that you read the whole book and complete that, but the basics of Excel, you need to understand. So Excel is more about creating some things in mind and putting it exactly on the in very quick time on the Excel and understand. And you need to create many alternatives. Everything and anything can happen in supply chain. So you need to have plan B, plan C, plan D, plan E, everything ready. If Titanic can sink, anything can happen, right? That's happened in supply chain. Whatever you think will happen, you should have plans for everything. And the last thing is timely escalate. Okay. This is the best thing for planning. I don't think many people would have told, but anyone who would have headed the planning role would have understood this. I'm just giving an example. You need to know exactly when you need to escalate, which is that there was a problem. You have tried, and you know very well that I need support of my seniors at this point because I have tried, I cannot try more than this. And if he or she doesn't help, then disruption will happen. That ability, if you have, you will grow very fast in planning, which is that disruption is, so example, in your case, I'll just give you an example, which is procurement, but still I'll say, stock out is going to happen for every item. If you will go to the boss, then they will say that he is not doing anything. If stock out happens, then also they'll say, why did you not tell me before? That will happen usually. So you exactly know that I have tried all my means. Now, if you don't talk to this person or don't get this done, then I cannot handle this. That ability, when you bring in, you have become a good planner, I would say.
This is coming from your practical experience, which I can confirm because I strongly believe that it's not only about sourcing, procurement, or even about supply chain. Like at the end of the day, manufacturing, everything comes under supply chain. The more closer you are to the ground realities, the better you are able to explain where you need to work. So whatever you have said, I can confirm that if this is done, your 90% plus problems are solved. And this looks very easy or very basic, but when you have to execute, it is not that easy. So it has to...
I can give you a very realistic example. I don't know if it counts. So for example, if you are say in Delhi and Yamuna river's level is rising, you need to know exactly at what level you have to give dharna in front of office saying कि अब तो you have to do something, otherwise Delhi will get flooded. ऐसा नहीं है कि डेंजर मार्क के आसपास आते ही मतलब you will exactly, उनको भी बहुत काम होंगे, they'll be doing so many things and you would be trying to talk to so many people. You have to go and show effort, right? कि मतलब मैं गया, I've tried all these things, now it is not happening, now you need to intervene, otherwise in next 3 days this is going to happen. And then they will say this person is good, उसने अपनी तरफ से they've tried everything. Now these are the options available, option A, B, C you give. These are the 3 things that will happen if you don't do this, and you have to do this. And then the people or who are heading you will be happy because they know that he has come after trying so much and this is what needs to be done.
Correct. इसी skills के अंदर अगर मैं बात करूं तो from your experience, did you face any failures also in any of your roles which led you to learn about these skills, that these things are very important? Or it was like more of a basic understanding you already had when you were doing these roles, that this is going to be this way and you have to be strong?
Yeah, I will say that I've been very inquisitive. And the
Okay.
more I have asked myself questions, I've asked a lot of questions to myself. The more I have asked questions, the more I have understood that I don't know details. So one of the basic questions which you're asking, which is different from supply chain planning, I would say is, what is a failure? How do you define failure? I just said that if I'm not able to do thing in a stipulated amount of time, it is failure. And that has happened multiple times. And it is a reiteration process where you keep on iterating and thinking, how could I do it within this much? So what is a failure for you? If you have not come first, it is failure. Failure is different in different circumstances. So I don't understand the word failure.
Okay.
It's more about not getting the success or not achieving that task within that timeline. That has happened multiple times. And each time you don't need to push yourself saying the task has not happened on time. You just need to say, could I have done something better? And usually the answer has been yes. Next time you do that, that's all you need. Failures and successes has been a word which I really could not understand throughout my career. I've asked myself in very much depth, but I really don't understand success. I really don't understand failure. It's more about the task which is given and you complete it. That's all.
Now, coming to the last section of this episode, there are two key things which I would like to discuss about. First is that generally, which are the key parameters or key performance indicators which organizations track? I know that every sub function might have a different KPI, so it might be difficult to cover every KPI. So main KPIs, if you can share. The second part is that if you want to advise someone, give guidance to a student or to a person who wants to make career in this function, supply chain planning, how can they approach these different sub functions? Is there any order to follow, or it depends on person to person?
I would rather say in terms of KPIs, not to go ahead with the general KPIs that organizations do follow.
Okay.
That will be a simple kind of formula which you can go and see and understand what is the kind of KPIs. Usually, you can search those KPIs from Google. Okay. OTIF, fill rate, these are the common stock out, MAP, these are the common kind of KPIs is that the organizations do follow. Different organizations have different kind of KPI at each level. To come down to this question, you have to again think back, why is a KPI needed? Suppose if you are heading some function, you don't have time to look into each and every area. You cannot look at each delivery. Let's take an example of fill rate. Fill rate is plan versus actual in different kind of a fill rate. Okay. You cannot look at each and every plan. So you make a metric to identify that what is the total impact of this miss to your organization. And that is the kind of KPI that you create as fill rate, in which the weighted average fill rate does come in. So the SKUs which are having high impact would lead to higher loss of fill rate. Those SKUs will always come on top. So you being the head, you have to immediately look into the main areas that, okay, this region, this SKU is what I need to focus upon. Metrics, basically, you have to understand why metrics are used. Metrics are used primarily to prioritize on which are the tasks that you need to improve as quickly as possible, because you only have 24 hours in a day. So that is the kind of thing. Now, higher you go above in the management, you will see output metric. For example, fill rate is an output metric, that this was the plan or this was the demand of the customer and this much you have fulfilled. Then there'll be input metric, which is, for example, customer asked this much, you could serve this much. It could be due to various reasons. Say lead time variation. Lead time was 5 days. Actually, you have brought it in 8 days. There can be disruption issue due to supply disruption. There can be breakdown in factory. There can be some other issue, which can be, say, vendor fill rate. I'm just giving an example here. Then there can be a forecast error. That's suppose you forecasted 4, but actually 10 has got sold. So now you need to have these different kind of KPIs. The transportation team would be having lead time issue. Lead time would work on lead time variation, where they will check which SKU. Again, the highest lead time losses will come on top. So they will come and check that what to work on that. Okay. There'll be a lead time loss for an SKU, which would be contributing only to the 1% of your volume. There'll be lead time loss, which will be contributing to 40% of your volume. So you will target 40% first, because that will come on the top of the KPI. Okay, vendor fill rates, you will understand which vendor is not doing well and or which factory is doing disruption. You will immediately work on that. Forecast planner will work on the forecast error piece. And that is how the input parameters start going. They start working on that. And when the input metrics do work upon, the output metrics gives a result. Okay. So usually you need to identify input metrics very fast and start working on input metrics. Okay. Output metric will automatically follow. And the top management will drive output metric, because they know that this is the area that they need to monitor. So metric is all about that. What are the ways to know the critical things that need to be reviewed or worked upon? That's how you need to see it. Tomorrow you can come and tell ki this is not the right metric. This is the right metric that you should track. Okay. And you can discuss, debate, and change that metric. I think people are very often very happy to change the metrics if it works well.
Okay. But like according to your experience, like which are those metrics which are non-negotiable and really covers the gist of the planning part? Are there any specific KPIs to start with?
Throughout the career when you grow.
Okay.
So when you become a demand planner, you feel that MAPE, which is mean absolute percentage error, which is forecast error, is the biggest metric in the world. Okay. When you go little above, then you understand no, fill rate is a bigger metric. Okay. When you go little above the line, then you understand finally ki there are two metrics in an organization. One is top line and one is bottom line. So whatever impacts revenue, that metrics are most important. Whatever can save you cost, that is metrics are most important. So I would say people will say that fill rate, out of stock are the metrics, but the way you should look at it, if you lose fill rates, you will lose revenues. If you have more detentions, it will have more costs. If you have more expiry, you will have more cost. If you have more sludge, you will have more costs. Okay. You have to look at that way. And you cannot solve everything. There are n number of people. Till n number of people have top 3 matrices which they have to improve, it's fine. And at every role, you will have different metrics to work upon. Why do you want to? It will be, I'm just giving an example. If I say to a demand planner, to a supply planner, to a distribution planner, to an NPD planner, to a production scheduling planning, I bring them all in the meeting and say, look, our fill rate has gone down from 93% to 87%. What will they do? They'll be concerned about it, right? They have to look at their metrics and tell ki, okay, this is what I had to do, and this is what I have done, and this is where the gap is. That's why this control tower role nowadays is coming up a lot. Okay. Who usually checks into all the fill rates and checks into due to which area has this happened and brings that in the meeting. Okay. And then you talk to that person due to which it is happening. So each person has got own responsibilities. And I would still say you have to focus on your own KPI and understand organization's KPI. Understand very well why this fill rate is very, very important. Okay. Because it hits top line, it hits bottom line. Why I said that? I said it very consciously. There are some things which may hit your top line very badly. And those KPIs are the most important, because you may feel it is less important, but tomorrow it will come and onto you from everywhere. You need to know very, very well. One SKU may be there which might not be too much important for you, but maybe a very big strategic importance for an organization. Yes, and if you hit fill rate there, you might say, okay, my fill rate has gone only down from 99% to 98.5%. But you've lost a customer who could give your top line increase by 3%. Then you have not done a good job there, right? Yes. So you need to understand the priorities. That is more important.
Thank you for explaining it in this manner. Not the typical way, but yes, a better understanding way of making sure that you are tracking those important things which matter to the organization and to your role as well. Now, the next part which I asked, that if someone wants to make a career in this function, supply chain planning, is there any order to follow in the roles, or it is like very open, depends on the person? What do you suggest?
You really cannot follow a specific pattern, I would say. So first is you have to work on all the basic roles initially. You have to work at the factory, you have to work as field logistics manager and understand things is what I would say before coming into the planning. Because as soon as you come into the planning, you start working on Excel sheets. And then you have to interact with those people who will start having a feeling that you don't know the ground things. Okay. You can go into any progression, but you must do a factory role or a field role right at the start of your career is what I feel.
Okay.
Otherwise, you will come to be known as a planner who doesn't understand what things will happen. So, for example, a planner who has gone into the field will understand that if I send this plan, it will not work, or it will work because this thing actually happens on the field. Otherwise, you will be having very much anxiety on the Excel sheet. That in Excel sheet it is coming, but actually it is not happening.
Yes.
You must know by going into the field is what I would say, and then you can get into the planning roles.
Okay, so there is no pattern as such.
For example, I'll just give you an example. You'll get a very good idea. Summers May, na, April, May, June, May, you will have manpower shortages. So planning versus actual, because people go to their home, heat is very high in the factories, etc. The plan versus actual will not be coming. You have to prepare inventory from before. This only you will know when you go into the field and understand how much heat is there. So while everybody will give plan that manning has to be 100%, but when you will actually go on the floor, you'll understand that practically it's not possible. There will be disruptions, and that thing will be there in your mind, and you will pre-plan for that. And not or the second thing which I told, you keep on asking some seniors, they will tell you from before that this thing is happening. So that initial run is very, very important.
I agree on this part. Being worked in the factories for more than like 6-7 years before coming to the corporate role, and I still enjoy that ground level knowledge, working with people at the ground and understanding the challenges there is something which makes me do things easier now. Like my tasks are very efficient and easier because I know the things there and I can just change my strategy.
Then you would be getting handover from a very good person. You would have got this input, na, ki this supplier, don't trust him. If he says 5 days, he will give it in 8 days. This supplier you can blindly trust. That's the kind of input that you might get. You can also look at past data, but sometimes data is not always available. So it's the ability to make decision based on limited data. You have to make a decision. You cannot cry throughout your life saying this data was not available, so what do I do? Yes. It's about your ability to make decisions based on limited data and the intuition and experience of all the people around there. That's all.
Correct. So thanks a lot. The discussion has been so good, and I'm getting a feeling that I need to add more discussions on the same topic because like the number of roles we covered, like what, 6-7 roles, and we have not even gone into their technicalities as of now. It is just a episode to help the viewers to understand what basically the supply chain planning is. So I think I surely need your support to cover that part as well, maybe in other episode. So thanks a lot.
Thanks for having me here. Yeah, but it's good here. It's great to connect and happy to discuss anything regarding any topic.